Good afternoon, everybody. This is Omar Serrano with the Tilted Lawyer podcast, wishing you a happy Inauguration Day. Donald Trump is officially our 47th president. He was officially sworn in. They did the whole ceremony this morning or in the afternoon if you're in the East Coast. And my initial impressions. Look, I didn't vote for the guy. I don't think Bruce voted for the guy. Me and Brad debated for like multiple shows about different things when it was a thing to do, like back in July and in October. I had Megan Fox try to convince me that Donald Trump was the way to go when he was elected. I even went on her show after he was announced the presumptive winner during the election to eat my sour grapes. Is that the expression? Sour something? Hey, he's the president. He was not my first choice. I don't think he would have been my 12th choice. But he's here now. And I got to tell you, I thought I'd be feeling worse about it, but it's more a feeling of reservation. Like, what could you do about it? What could you do? Like, it's over. The election happened. He's our president now. I support him. I got to support him. I have to trust that he has the best interests of the country at heart. Even if he does weird shit like a month ago, he was talking about, I'm going to ban TikTok. And then it does get banned for like 12 hours. And then there's this announcement, hey, thanks to the efforts of President Trump, we are back on. It's like he's doing weird shit like that, which is the hallmarks of an oligarchy. Narcissistic behavior, I've heard that bandied about. I don't care about TikTok. I don't care about any of that. There's going to be some pandering to people that donated to his campaign. Donald Trump is no different than the other 46 presidents or the 45th version of Donald Trump.
Wait, Omar, you don't put your salsa dancing on TikTok videos?
There's an idea.
This is a missed opportunity.
Maybe if I did, I'd have more than 300 followers. I have not really posted on TikTok for like a year. And the followers I have is just because people have filtered in through the YouTube channel. But hey, man, I heard it was supposed to be for dancing. You might as well throw a little salsa dance tutorial on there for shits and giggles. Why not? Why not? Hey, Donald Trump is going to do a lot of weird shit. I also believe that he's going to do some good things. He has announced through his planned executive orders over the coming hours that he's going to declare a state of emergency on the southern border. He was going to create the External Revenue Service, which I thought was kind of a brilliant idea. Like, why haven't we done that before? That's the kind of out of the box thinking that, well, I don't know if it's out of the box. I don't know if anybody's ever presented that before. It's like, yeah, why not get a group together to try to collect on some of these tariffs that he's so carefully crafted, or his team is so carefully crafted? I don't know.
Internal Revenue Service implies an external revenue service.
Kind of.
Set
Like
theory.
it already exists. So I don't know. I just don't know if, I've never heard of it. I'm going to let Bruce go first. I don't want Brad to start bragging yet. I want to get my thoughts from Bruce. How are you feeling today on January 20th?
Well, the sun is out and it's a nice chilly day. My approach is very pragmatic, right? Like, I try to focus on the things that I have direct control over.
Yeah.
And I have a video on my channel that talks about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And, you have to sort of focus on that before you can focus on anything else. And so I try to focus on the things I can impact or have control over.
Yeah.
I go online and I see comment sections, and a lot of places they got rid of their comment sections, but in the old days, you'd read a news article about, scientists have figured out how to make nuts hotter or spicier. And then somebody in the comments section would be like, thanks, Obama, or whatever. And,
of course.
And it's just like, I think people worry about who the president is more than they should. the federal government is just one of the governments aside from state and local government. And, the presidential office is only one third of that federal government. And so I think just because there's like a singular face to it, people just give it too much weight. And I don't know. I try to just focus on the things I have control over and the things I can influence. Like I have blackberry vines I need to go cut back.
Oh,
I
not
can't
the.
I can't worry too much about, other things. I don't know. It
I
doesn't
don't
do me
think
any good to worry about things I can't impact.
To be fair, I don't think I've ever had blackberry vines come up in a course of a normal
Welcome to
conversation.
Oregon. These are the invasive blackberry vines from Europe or whatever. I don't know.
Agreed with you on so many fronts. I'm not going to just, react like so many, like the sky is falling and he's going to sell America out and he's going to consolidate power. Maybe he's going to do all those things, but America's been around for a long time. He's no different than a lot of other presidents. He's the loudest. You got to give him some credit, man. He's a tough mother effer. And 2 assassination attempts. They try to bury him politically through the criminal system, which somehow through the 4 years that he wasn't in office just didn't work. The guy is relentless. I mean, there's think about it. You're out of office. January 6th happens. There is what he has identified as a witch hunt against him for taxes and various other maladies. And they convict him on a number of different felonies. And he still runs for office. They try to assassinate him twice. He still keeps on coming. He keeps on going after you. He's like Rocky in Rocky 1. He's all wrong for us, baby.
There's a reason they call him Teflon Don.
Exactly.
I've seen that man get hit like I ain't seen nobody get hit before. And he keeps on coming after you. Let it go. Let it go. No, we're going to assemble the team run. God damn it. I just did the whole, I don't know how accurate it was, but that's what he is. He is unique in American political discourse that I have made the comparison to Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was a guy. He came into power in 1900 because I forget who was assassinated. He was the VP.
McKinley.
Was it McKinley? I think that sounds right. He was elected in 1904. He very well could have, and they wanted him to remove the 2-term restriction because they wanted him in power past 1908. And he says, no, who am I to change the rules? And then he gets out of power, and then they elected Taft. And then he doesn't like how Taft is doing things, and he wants back into office, and they won't let him back into office. They're not going to give him the Democratic nomination, so he starts his own party. I think it was called the Bull Moose Party. Verification on that one, Brad. The Bull Moose, something like that. He starts his own party. It was the only time, I think, where a third party received more than 30% of the votes. Yep. He didn't almost get reelected or anything, but he just stayed in it. He was given a speech. He was shot. He finished his speech. I think the bullet had pierced his 50-page speech and lodged into his lung, and he finished the speech anyway. There's a lot of toughness there that Donald Trump inherited. Whether or not he has the same political acumen, I don't know. He's got some kind of political acumen because you got to give him credit for what he did. He single-handedly turned the Republican Party upside down and created this leadership vacuum with the Democrats such that they had no idea how to attack him. They had no idea how to deal with him. They had no idea how to run up against him. And as a result, even after they got him out of office, he's right back in there. And there's not really a clear leader on the Democratic side. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of voices. There's a lot of Jon Stewarts out there floating around and Bill Mauers and all of these kinds of people, but nobody to step in a position of leadership the way that Donald Trump has. And he's done it in a fascinating way. Just, this is what I believe, and I'm going to say it whether or not it's wrong or right, or whether or not it's true or not. If you say it enough, he's consolidated power in all of the ways that we've known. That's how you consolidate power. And he just became this complete powder keg of political acumen and threw the entire system out of whack. To the point where when he was given his inaugural speech this morning, it was different than 2016. I don't know if the two of you felt that. But in 2016, I felt like he was very much deer in headlights. He was giving like a campaign speech. America is terrible, and we're in the depths of hell. I'm going to resurrect. There was a lot of optimism written into this speech, and I thought it was, dare I say, presidential. He looked like a guy that's been there before. He looked like a guy that commanded the moment, that was comfortable being where he was at, that has worked his entire life to get where he's at. And after all of the bullshit that he's been through over the last 9 years, really 10, 12 years, he stands here triumphant as the president of the United States. And for better or worse, he's our guy. He's going to say a lot of stupid and wild shit. And you know what? He's going to get a lot of stuff done because he has an unprecedented level of power. I think he's got the Senate. He's got the House. Yeah. Obviously, he's got the presidency. He's got a conservative Supreme Court. He's going to be able to implement a lot of his ideas, whether or not they're his ideas or the ideas of others, is up for debate. My only real issue with Donald Trump has always been the blatant lies and the fear mongering. And it's also been, aside from all of that, I'm even willing to overlook those things. It's the people that are around him that has always bothered me.
What, the sycophants or the people who attach themselves to him to try and get access to power?
I'm thinking his family members for sure, like his sons. I don't want them anywhere near the political offices. And yet there are people that are suggesting that his son, Donald J. Trump Jr., is like the leading candidate for 2028. That is terrifying. Who was that one guy, the immigration guy that he's white with bald head? He's like a younger guy. He has like these right-wing national. Miller, that's the guy. People like that.
Steve Miller?
Miller and Bannon and those guys, because
those guys,
they came in. Some of those guys came in early, and some of them, he kicked them out or they left or whatever. But
yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
I don't know if they're going to be around for this term. They were around for the last term, and I think it terrified a lot of people. I don't want those people anywhere near the White House. I don't know how realistic of a request that is, but it is what it is. But Brad, I haven't even given you a chance to gloat yet. What are your thoughts after this morning?
It's not even really a gloat thing, because in my fundamental policy view, the presidency shouldn't have so much power that everyone feels like we're going into a Nazi regime whenever someone on the other side switches.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
If we stop consolidating power at the federal government, then it becomes less of an issue, because in a true republic, power should be most effectively handled at the lowest level possible. And the way that we do it now is most places have a small municipal government, a slightly bigger state government, and now we have this behemoth of a federal government, and it should really flip itself the other way. And it really just doesn't work its way out that way. So I posted on Twitter this morning, I said, 2 minutes after Trump took the oath of office, I said, man, look at this, fascism is awful. And because if you listen to some of the way people are talking, as soon as Trump gets into office, we're all going to be like that stupid book series where all the women are locked up and used as a breeding stock.
Oh, The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, The Handmaid's
Tale. I got to start reading up on that one.
Yeah, I think they made it into a TV series.
Yeah, they made it into a TV series.
And I mean, Brad, the same thing with inefficiency happens in corporations. Like I've seen it. Like if the CEO has to break every tie in every single decision that a company makes, the company's never going to get anything done on schedule. Right. And we saw that, every time there's a reorg or they hire new people in to manage the company, they say, we really want to push more decision making down, because they constantly have to do that to keep things from becoming so inefficient.
There's a lot of left-wing commentators out there I don't want to name any of them, but a lot of them are constant. They're continuing with the fear mongering. It's like he's in office and it's so terrible, and he's pandering to the people that donated him money. Kyle Kalinske is one of these guys. He had nothing but criticism for his inauguration speech. My question is, what president of the 47 that we've had has not pandered to those that have donated to the cause? That's been going on for like over almost 300 years now. Like that should surprise anybody. That doesn't give me pause with Trump.
I would say Washington, but
oh, you had a retort. Explain.
Well, so Washington was basically installed as the first president, and
George, you're not talking about
yeah, he's like, I really don't want to be, but I guess I am now, so I'm here. And then he serves his 2 terms and leaves, and that was the end of that. But I think
that was before my time, Brad.
Well, yeah,
a little bit. I can't pretend that I'm up to date on all of the scheming that gone on with George Washington and his political donors. I know that they wanted to make him a king, and he said no to that, and he implemented the 2-term limit. He did a lot of things. I actually read a book about him and Alexander Hamilton and how he came to power and how that whole thing. But I'd be lying if I could identify specifically what you're talking about in terms of.
Well, I would say it when you talk about, the modern political discourse, we really are going back to basically 1900 and then now, because when you think about political parties, how the telegraph and things changed communication and instituted what we now know to be our modern political landscape, it's so vastly different than what it was prior.
Stephanie B says, not that Biden did much either, but I'm so pissed off at Biden. I'm so upset with that guy. I voted for him. I have nothing positive to say about his presidency. He did some good things. That's what I'll say. But the way that it all ended up, his ego led to this vacuum of leadership in the Democratic Party that just hamstrung them. And so whatever it was he thought he was doing, or you thought you were voting for in 2020, that's all out the window. It's over now, man. There is no stopping what's coming with Trump and the Republican Party and their acquisition of power. What else does Stephanie say? Going back every 4 years, nothing for the majority of people ever really gets done because the sides are so far apart. There's something to be said about that. What do you guys think in 2025 about this 2-term system? Because I don't know, call me prophetic. I just feel like Trump is going to try to make a run after his 4 years are done.
I think it's less about the terms. I mean, I think there should be term limits on all positions, especially the ones that don't currently have them.
Should it be based on age?
But I think the real problem here is this dichotomy that it's like, okay, if you don't vote for party A or party B, you're wasting your vote. And that's because we don't have high quality, ranked choice voting and other things like that done in a correct way to enable more of a parliamentary system or something like that. This sort of binary thing is just no good.
Oh, well,
in my opinion.
Yeah, but how do you even get rid of it though?
That's what I'm saying. You have to figure out a ranked choice voting system that works well, because people have tried some different ranked choice voting systems in the past, and I know there's been problems with some of them, or they're complicated, or they're hard to implement. But we're smart humans; we can figure it out, I think.
Well, the ranked choice voting is what kept Claire McCaskill still in Alaska.
Brad, who is your favorite president?
Who's
the guy like that you would point to as the model that all of presidents should aspire to be?
I don't know. I haven't done enough research on some of the presidents, but I've always heard that Harding was one of the best, or Coolidge.
Wow, you're going way back.
But
from the 20s?
Yeah, from the 20s.
Warren G. Regulate.
But I can't speak super intelligently on enough, but from the folks that I've heard from, those particular presidents have done the best in terms of basically saying we're not going to increase the scope of federal government. We're not going to increase regulation, and we're going to let business be business. And that is what I believe the role of the federal government should be.
In my opinion, I think I should ask Bruce first who your ideal president would be.
I have to have an ideal president.
You don't? You could just say, I don't have one.
I don't have one.
All right.
When I was doing trivia every week at the pizza place, there was a different guy on my team, and his job was to know all the presidents. Because he was trying to literally memorize all of them and know sort of about what they had done and things like that. Because we had a lot of trivia questions around that.
I don't necessarily have an ideal president. I have a lot of ideal presidential traits. I've always admired the Roosevelts, both Teddy and FDR. I think, and interestingly, they were on opposite sides of the political spectrum. And Teddy was like this Harvard-trained, straight out of Harvard, got in office, this maniacal genius that was just constantly working. And they said that his energy levels was off the charts. Nobody worked harder than him as a president. FDR came in with polio, and people were trying to write him off because of his disabilities, but he had a way of bringing everybody together in like this really presidential way, and stopping some of the stuff that was going on back at the time. He was in office for like 12 years, 3 terms, 4 terms, just about. He died during his 4th term.
Yep.
I liked him. I think that Reagan and his ability to connect with regular folks is unmatched. I guess you could say Obama. Who would be a more charismatic president than Reagan if you had to pick one? I don't know, man.
I don't know, because I know that Obama did connect with a lot of people, and the weird thing is for as much crap as people give Trump, it's a hard thing to deny that he's got a charismatic voice and can speak to people.
No doubt about that. Doubt about that.
He had his own TV shows and all that jazz, right?
Oh, he's lived a life, and I think people appreciate that he is not this perfect thing. He is this muddled, overcooked piece of dough bread, and with all the ingredients, he's lived a full life, man. He's got his peccadillos. He doesn't eat healthy. He doesn't exercise because he says you only got a certain amount of energy, and you don't want to burn it off. I don't know. These are things that he said, but in terms of charisma, he's a funny guy. Like, you talk to him, you're going to like him immediately. You talk to him and he's going to own the room. He doesn't care if he's wrong. He has a playbook. If he knows it's going the opposite way, he just muddies up everything. Oh, you're going to attack me on this? And you know what? You are the worst. You're the worst. Fake news, this and that. And he just has his way of overcoming all of these, all of his perceived shortcomings. I don't know if he's different charismatically than, say, Barack Obama. Everybody wants to say how Obama was like the model charismatic president. And no doubt, when you listen to a political speech, there's nobody, I've never seen anybody better than Obama.
He's an orator, but I don't know if he connects with people in the same way.
And that's kind of where I was going. So he's like this perfect, polished thing. You're not going to win a war of words against him. You're not going to match him in a battle of wits. And I think what he sold a lot of people on back in 2008 and 2012 was this idea of hope and change and everything and whatever. And for whatever reason, he didn't get all the things done that he said he was going to do. His presidency has been attacked by people a lot smarter than I. But, he did his best with what he had to work with. There was points where he had an opportunity to make change. And then I think in his 2nd term, when he became a lame dunk president, there was people revolting against him. He couldn't get anything done. Oh, I think I accidentally turned on.
Yeah. There's a lot of context. There's a lot of variables, right? These are complicated equations. It's not just,
I
good
think
or
it's
bad,
more
true or false, pass or fail. There's a lot of variables, right?
true. And plus, who he was running up against was like this other polished thing. The Republicans, they had it was McCain first, and McCain was great. War hero, all of these things, super polite, like super honorable. But his VP was weird. Sarah Palin, and I think that McCain was oftentimes way too deferential to Obama in different eras just because of who he was. But I would have voted for McCain if it weren't for Obama. I totally would have. In 12, you had Mitt Romney, who had been preparing for that seat all of his life. And he came off as this polished guy. Everything that he said was very robotic, non-human. He couldn't connect with people on a humanistic level where Obama could. And so he got steamrolled.
I mean, he had binders full of women, so I'll give him that.
Well, the funny thing is, no, that was the smear against Romney, was that he had.
Oh, I don't give a shit about that. But, so he had a binder full of women.
But the funny thing is in 2007, when we were going through a governorship election, I remember that Mitt Romney was touring with Dick DeVos, who was the Republican candidate against Granholm at the time. And I remember seeing him on stage and hearing Dick DeVos say, yeah, and this guy has he's got his eyes set on running for president someday. And we're like, oh, ha, 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 it was funny. And then come to find out in 2012, he's up on stage. And I was attracted to his doing that by virtue of having seen him on stage. But in my view, McCain and Romney they didn't set themselves apart away enough because they come from the more centrist Republicans,
right,
in comparison to Obama, and that doesn't really show much of a difference. And while Obama campaigned on the hope and change and some of the further left policies,
right,
his full presidency ended up being a little bit more centrist than what many would like.
I'm not even sure if the centrist Republican movement of Romney and McCain even exists anymore.
Oh, it still does.
If it does, they have been buried by whatever Trump is. I don't know. Brad disagrees.
I will disagree with that highly, and you see that play out in the Senate as well as the House battles.
For sure. But how old are these centrist Republicans? Because I feel like the new generation of Republicans are not doing that shit.
Liz Cheney is part of that.
Nah, but who's taking her serious?
A lot of people, apparently. And if it comes down to a vote from Mitt Romney or Liz Cheney on a serious issue, and they say no, we're going to vote with the Democrats and tank your bill, because that's what ends up happening.
How would you categorize like a Tulsi Gabbard who came over from the Democratic Party, has transferred, now she's a Republican? How would you classify her as a Republican? Also, RFK, the new convert,
right,
by virtue of this Trump's last campaign.
So you have the conservative Democrats that feel like the Democrat Party has left them in the dust. So I would consider them more conservative on some issues, but then there's other pieces where and it's really difficult to phrase because it's a square. It's not as so much of a line. Yeah. And when you try and place people, it's easy to just say, oh, well, they're conservative, they're progressive, because there's so many factors that go into that. That's why I really like the totalitarian versus anarchist scale versus the socially and or the social and conservative line.
Getting back to what you were saying before, I think that Obama, where he was charismatic, where it worked like a decade ago, the way that it translated into 24 when he was campaigning for what was her name? The VP's name, man. What was her name?
Kamala Harris.
Yeah, where he started turning into like this like the dad of the Democrats or the grandpa of the Democrats, and he started scolding everybody, and like you have a responsibility. Like he's going into African American establishments and saying, you guys have a responsibility to vote for Kamala. I think it just backfired, and people are just tired of that level of discourse. like this identity politics, this left style of politics where we're standing on like these positive affirmations and nothing more. We've done that whole thing. Trump just came and said, I'm not standing on positive affirmations. I think that if you were to ask Bruce, I think Bruce would say that he stood mostly on fear mongering and I don't know. I don't want to say fear mongering lies, but just
there are definitely these messages. But I mean, any politician can do that.
I think the weird thing about Obama in Biden's presidency is that a lot of people considered Biden to be just kind of a figurehead to run Obama's agenda in a third term, quote unquote.
I got to tell you, though, I think that a lot of Democrats feel like Trump was a figurehead in 16 to 20. I don't know if people still hold that opinion, but I think that I heard a lot of people say, oh, I'm voting for him. He's not the one calling the shots anyway. I think that a lot of people voted for Trump because they think that he's just a name. There's like a whole team of people that are actually going to be running the country. He's just the face of the Republican Party.
I don't think that was the case during his presidency, but I do think that he did outsource a lot of different things. And that's where you get the Stephen Millers and then Ivanka and her husband running a lot of foreign policy things.
I did hear Trump say on Rogan that he regretted a lot of the decisions, his hiring decisions early on in the presidency. And he explained, it's like, look, I get there, my first week in office, they want me to fill like 2,500 positions. And I was like, okay. And so he relied on a lot of other people. I think he's more prepared for that this time around. Mm-hmm. There was a comment that I had posted up there and now I can't find it. Dominic, did you take down my comment? It was something like, damn it.
The Sawyer one, this one?
Yeah, okay. I was making the point where Obama, where they basically just kind of prevented him from doing anything. And Lana Sawyer says, gee, this sounds a lot like Trump's first term, which, there was an aspect, his first couple of years, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he have the Senate? Didn't he have the Senate? I don't think he had the House.
Yeah, he had the Senate. He didn't have the House.
Right, but after that, he didn't have anything.
He lost both, yeah.
And then he got impeached like 22 times, or you know, they were completely working again. I agree with that. It happened to Obama. They did it to Trump, but hey,
well, Obama had it the first two years, lost the House, then in 2012 lost the Senate, and then Republicans bitched and moaned until they said, well, what do you want us to do with only one half of the legislative power? And then when they get all of the power, and then they're like, nope, screw you, nothing's getting done. It's like, God.
To this point right here, Roy Lonsinger says that Romney gave away 2012 by not hammering him on Benghazi. But you know who did hammer Obama's policies on Benghazi? Trump. As soon as he started his 2016 campaign, he railed on Obama and his policies and everything that went down over there and a lot of other stuff. And he wasn't afraid to say it. Yeah. Romney, for whatever he was a good politician, but he wasn't a fighter. I think that people respect more than anything. I could respect it. Donald Trump, he has a fighter's spirit. I mean, undeniable. The guy he keeps on coming after you, man. He keeps on coming. He's gone through so much turmoil politically, in his private life, in the news, in the media. Everybody just kind of has written him off like multiple times. And yet he's sitting here, the 47th president of the United States. I think that is a master class in how to deal with adversity. And now, before in 2016, when I would consider what I thought about Donald Trump going to represent America, to speak to our, other world's leaders, there was a hint of trepidation with me, because is he really going to know what he's doing? Now it's like, you know what? We're throwing Trump over there. He's going to say a bunch of crazy shit. He's going to get certain things done. People are either going to take him serious or they're not. But he's got juice now, where he didn't have it in 2016. I think I wanted to go. I can't play his actual speech because I'll get like stricken.
Yeah, there's a lot of that today. I know a number of creators were getting thrown off of YouTube for streaming the inauguration.
Yeah.
And whatnot.
I'm not going to play a clip, but I will read. I was really impressed with his. I know he didn't write this. I just want to say that this inaugural speech was way different from 2016. I've heard some left-wing commentators describe it as, this fear-mongering thing. It wasn't as bad as 16, but it was still like this negative thing. And he like kind of shit on Biden on the way out towards the end of his speech. But I don't know. This is what I took from it. This is what he said. He says, from this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. When he said that before, I think that a lot of people just kind of like wrote it off like he doesn't know what he's talking about. Because if you travel internationally and you speak to people about what their opinions are of America, what their opinions are of Trump, it's all negative. It's all bad. But there's something to be said about the guy that walks in. He knows that you think that. He knows that. But he's going to say this stuff anyway. He's going to say that we will be the envy of every nation. We will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. America first. Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end. I was curious I actually wrote a note on that sentence because there are some that think that he's going to get into office and starts punitively going after some of the people that went after him since 2020. What do you think about that, Brad?
Yeah. The weird thing about it is like things that Trump says, like the fact that he hasn't started any new foreign wars during his presidency, but yet you go back and look at the presidents previously and you're like, oh, well, we're going to start an action here and here and here and here. And he's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do our best to try and minimize foreign conflict. And then you get the new rockets launched by North Korea during his presidency and things like that. It's like for the things that he actually claims, he does have evidence behind it. And especially when it comes to foreign power, because as one of your commenters mentioned, the Abraham Accords, that was a pretty significant thing. And Obama gets a Nobel Peace Prize by virtually existing and not having done anything in 2008. So it's just really weird how these narratives around our political class really seem to develop.
Well, I think these narratives come about through our assumptions of what we think his political prowess is. And I think that I thought in 2016 that he was in over his head. I was really worried about the people that were around him because I didn't feel confident that he knew what he was doing. And maybe he didn't know what he was doing. He just went in there like Lana Sawyer says. He's a businessman. He went in there and negotiated. He went in there to negotiate, to play deal maker. And to be fair, if that's what your world experience is, your life experience is, and you go in there to negotiate with folks, you're going to be all right. And who's got the rule book and who says that you're supposed to be this and that as a president? If you present yourself in a position of strength and negotiation, it doesn't matter if people think you're presidential or not. If you get results, you get results. And I don't think that it's disputable that he certainly made inroads in areas of the world where we'd never had inroads before. I don't know what that means going forward. I don't know if, for example, Putin is happy that Trump is in office because he's going to be able to take advantage of him, or if he's happy because now he has somebody that he trusts to negotiate with. I don't know what to make of that. But he certainly does have an ability to, he'll throw shots like the president of Mexico. He says, we're going to rename the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America, just to troll him a little bit. We're going to tax or we're going to tariff Mexico, and just says all this crazy shit. He did the same thing back in 2016 and they didn't do any of those things, but it got us talking with Mexico on some level. And so there's some effect to it. And as a lawyer, I could appreciate that, because oftentimes your first introduction to a new lawyer on a new case is you write like a demand letter or whatever. Look, your client did this or that. I see what you're trying to do here, but your arguments are stupid and we're going to destroy you. And then you have a meet and confer, and then you respect each other's position. You have a whiskey or a brandy and a cigar sometimes. Well, we never do that. It's all
No, of course not. Why would that happen?
But you enter into these relationships in an adversarial position, and you respect each other's position, and then you negotiate in the course of it, and you try to find a way to make both sides happy. It's the art of negotiation. It's what we do.
And the dude literally wrote the book called The Art of the Deal. And
I've never read that book. Are we sure they do? Are you sure that wasn't an AI construct, Brad? Obviously,
I'm pretty sure it wasn't an AI construct, because I think it was written in the 90s. But
I'm totally kidding. Yeah.
But the idea is, if you tell a country, hey, we're going to do this thing to you, and it makes them come to the table to then negotiate a deal so that they don't get this terrible thing, then is it a bad thing because it's solely on Trump to be able to implement those things?
So Trump drives me crazy, I think, for a lot of the same reasons that I'd imagine he drives Bruce crazy. I know Bruce to be a very logical man that relies on evidence to make his decisions. And I know, speaking to him months ago about Trump, that his frustrations with Trump were not overblown. It was just like, you say these things, but there's no evidence to show this and that. And, I'm pretty sure that Bruce called him a dishonest interlocutor.
I don't know about that, but I mean, the fragment of the speech you just read, a lot of it was just speech making, right? It's just rhetoric. Like I don't know, I have a management background, so all I want to see are measurable objectives and plans. That's all I want to see as a sort of skeptical human, right?
Yeah.
I want to see measurable objectives and data over time showing whether you're accomplishing those objectives or not.
See, Bruce,
And whenever you do all this stuff like, we're going to be admired by everybody, I'm like,
Yeah.
you can't, I don't know how you measure that. That's just
I know that doesn't
anecdote.
fit
That's
to
just
a guy like you.
rhetoric.
Yeah.
I have no use for rhetoric in my life. I want measurable objectives. I want details. I want to spend my energy on things that I know I can have an impact on.
For sure. My only point in mentioning the inaugural speech is not that I think that, he's going to do all of these things or I believe everything he's saying. I think that you and I think even Brad knows it's all just bullshit. It's rhetoric. It's a speech. Somebody wrote it for him. He's saying it's for appearances. What he's saying in that speech and what he actually does are going to be two different things. It's just how it's been forever.
And there may be people for whom the rhetoric is important. It may be emotionally important for them. It's just, I'm not that human. I had a second level manager. We had I don't know, an all hands meeting or something. And the guy was going off on this and that. It was all very qualitative, not quantitative. And so when I was talking to this guy, I was like, look, you didn't present any qualitative plans. You didn't show any numbers. You're not telling me what we're going to do in this organization. It's all very qualitative. It's all very rhetorical. And he's like, yeah, but people need that. And I'm like, no, I don't need that. And he's like, well, you're weird. I don't know. But anyway, and that was at an engineering company. And I don't know, maybe I'm way too far to one side of the pedantic column.
No, I'm with you on all of that. I agree. I've never been much to listen to Trump's speeches because it was like 99% fluff. I felt like I was never getting concrete information from anything that he had to say. But today he did say some concrete things. This is what he said.
I mean, there are some things like when they say, okay, we're going to do this executive order, or we're going to try to get this bill passed. Like those are literal things. Like, okay, those are real. I mean, there are concrete things. I'm just saying, like the part you read wasn't.
Well, that was the beginning. That was like the intro. He was like clearing his throat. You know what I mean? But I think this is the part of the speech that I thought that you would appreciate, where he says, today I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. He also said he was going to do that back in 2016.
Who are these
Uh,
millions and millions of people?
well, that's what I was going to say. Like, who are the
Is there
millions?
an Excel spreadsheet or something? Or?
There isn't. I bet you, Brad, if there is one, Brad would have it.
I'm
You might.
sure I could pull it up.
Yeah, pull it up, Brad. I want to see who the millions of people are. Also, you don't have to. I'm
Man,
not trying to make you do homework.
I think it's the idea
I don't know how that
that
works.
if you
Yeah.
have this app, the Customs and Border Patrol app that allows you to schedule hearings, and then you're free to go about the country while you're awaiting your judicial appointment as to whether or not you're continued to allow to be in, and you say no, we're not going to give you access to then wait for permanent access. You're
Yeah.
going to either stay in Mexico with the Remain in Mexico policy, or you stay in your home country until you're given authorization to come into the country under a valid reason.
So he's going to reinstate Remain in Mexico. He says, I will end the practice of catch and release, which I agree with. I mean, I don't understand unless this like expedited deportation, which we used to do. If you catch somebody at the border and they got a criminal record, I don't understand why you would release them into the country or release them at all, as opposed to just escort them back over the border.
It's not even criminals. It's the fact that if you're coming into the country and you're here and you don't have a valid reason for coming in, you don't have an approved visa or anything else, then you just get removed.
My understanding of that, though, is that I feel like that's kind of already the case. Like, if you don't have a valid reason to be in the U.S., they don't let you in. But maybe I'm mistaken on that. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but, he says he's going to do that. That's good.
Well, it's the difference between if you're smuggling 15 people in a van across a border entry point and they find you, well, then they ship you back. But if you swim across the Rio Grande River in Texas and Customs and Border finds you and then says, okay, well, here's your hearing date. Here they process you and then you're free to go about in the country. Then you're basically given a de facto allowance into the country. And
most people are when they come in, they don't come in that way. When they come in, they're usually waved in at the border because their identity, like for example, they're hiding in the trunk of a car, or they're hiding in like the floorboards of the car or something, and they're just waved through. They're being driven in by an American citizen or somebody with the green card or something. And so they don't get to inspect everybody. So they're waved in without inspection. A lot of people get in that way. But generally, if they identify you as a non-American citizen without a right to be there, they just turn you away. And so I guess I'd have to see what he means by that. But I don't want to get into a whole immigration debate on today's show. That's a discussion for another day. He said he's going to do these things. He says, under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gang criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities. I guess if you believe that the government is already kind of working with the cartels in like this symbiotic relationship, I wonder how that's going to work. I don't know. Just thinking out loud. He says, as commander-in-chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions. And that is exactly what I'm going to do. We will do it at a level that nobody has seen before. That's the Trumpisms coming out. Next, I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. I mean, that's nice, but how's he going to do that? You can't just like wish it away, you know? The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices. That is why today I will declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. Okay? He's going to make America a manufacturing nation once again. We will bring prices down, fill our strategic reserves up again, right to the top, and export American energy all over the world. We will be a rich nation again. So he starts saying all this stuff, and then the rest of it is like a lot of, speech left, like we had talked about.
It's
earlier.
still fairly qualitative, like where I work, if you're saying, okay, we have a product and we're going to sell it, I want to sell $10 million this year. I want to sell $20 million next year. Like,
Yeah.
even if you only sell 5 million and you say, my goal is to sell 20, you're at least measuring something against a goal. And the goal may be a moonshot. And oftentimes it's good to give people a moonshot because they will potentially, when they're faced with a challenge, they'll come up with a solution no one has come up with before.
Right.
But you have to make it measurable and you have to make it quantitative, and there has to be accountability and measurement over time. And that's what I don't see in politics a lot. This is
Yeah.
why I never understood the idea of a political promise. Nobody
Hmm.
should ever make a promise. You should have a plan, because plans may need to change over time as you develop new ideas or run into other problems. Nobody should
Yeah.
ever make a promise. You make a plan and then you track your progress to the plan. And that's how things get done.
I mean, you can make a promise to try. I'm going to try my best. I mean, I
Well,
guess like
I
some of these
mean, when you're
methods,
hired in a job, it's effectively a promise. Like, I don't know. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you get fired, right? Or you
I
get
mean,
voted out.
he's at the very least promising that he's going to do our best to fix all these things. I
Well,
mean, if you
so I-
take it at face value.
Okay. Like,
So
Yeah,
the biggest
not
thing
enough.
is he's making statements that are summarizations of pieces of larger plans. So
right.
if you look at, why is the cost of goods so high? Well, one of the reasons is increasing energy prices. So you say, well, a part of his plan is he wants to reallow drilling on federal lands. He also recognizes that wind farms off the coasts may have been hurting whale populations, so he wants to stop that part of it. And the amount of energy that's going to get allowed to be generated through the country is going to surpass that's going to be turned off on the coast.
He did say he was going to end the Russian-Ukraine war in 24 hours, as Beautiful Waterfall reminded us. Didn't he say that during the debates?
Well, he's got 19 hours left, so we'll see.
If I get in the office,
There's
here's
a good
what I'm gonna
example
do.
of a quantitative moonshot. For sure.
There you go. I mean, he says these things, and nobody expects that that's a real thing.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I don't know. I mean, if you have a goal like, hey, we need to get to the moon, we need to, you don't know if you can. We just don't know, but we at least know what success. You have to define success. Otherwise, your employees or the people you're leading will not understand what to do to get there.
Yeah.
Okay? So you have to define success in some way. And if you can do it quantitatively, that's better. But I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm at peace. I'm at peace with his inauguration. I'm at peace with the next 4 years because there's literally nothing we can do about it. He's the president. I didn't vote for him. I don't think that Bruce voted for him. I know that Brad did. I know many of you guys did. Half of you guys did. I came really, really close to voting for Trump just because Kamala was such a bad candidate. There was missteps all across her campaign. And granted, she only had like 107 days to put something together because Biden could not foresee a Democratic Party without him at the top. He stayed in it until he had that disastrous debate in July. And that is what it was. But,
I still think it was a coup, but...
Well, of course it was a coup. They wanted to get him out. They wanted to do the debate early enough so that they could pressure him to stepping down because it would have been a bad look. I just don't understand why they didn't just run a primary. I feel like people in 2020 voted for Biden thinking that he was going to be a one-term president, like this carryover to pass the torch to some new up-and-comer. And then he wanted to just stay in. He said, no, I'm going to run again. And then he was just completely ill-equipped, not prepared, not ready, not physically capable of carrying it off. And then, we were force-fed Kamala Harris, not even with like a miniature primary. And so it reminds me a lot of when Obama was elected in his second term in 2012. And there was a lot of people on Fox News and CNN, and they were commenting about the state of the Republican Party because it just looks so far gone that Americans were ever going to look to them as a measure of leadership ever again. And they had this vacuum of leadership. There was just nobody there that was able or willing or capable of stepping up and taking the party by the reins and challenging the Democrats. Like, even when Obama was in office, I think they had been talking about Hillary Clinton running since like 2004 or something like that. I remember it was like, yeah, I mean, ever since her husband was out of office in 2000, they were talking about her making a run in 04 and 08 and 12, 16. 16 was supposed to be her big coming out party. But something happened. I feel like if she was allowed to run against John Kasich, she would have probably freaking won. Or I don't know, whoever would have been who would have been the guy if it wasn't Trump in 16?
Gosh, Jeb Bush?
Maybe, yeah, they were talking about him. Low energy Jeb.
Yeah.
That's how I remember Jeb Bush. They were talking about him for like over a decade because he was a Bush.
Oh, who were those other guys back then? Was Rubio back then too?
Rubio was there.
There was a
one.
little bit of Rubio. There was the former governor of Arkansas.
Who was that one guy that he was going to be a thing, but then he got caught cheating on his wife or something like that? John Edwards, I think it was it.
That was 2004.
That was way earlier, right?
Oh, was that way earlier?
We're thinking of someone else.
Yeah,
Oh, Huckabee was around. That's true.
Yeah, he was like this half-cocked candidate.
Huckabee.
No, it wasn't Huckabee. I think his name was
that's who I was mentioning. But
oh, okay. Yeah, but the plan was laid out. The Democrats were going to stay in power probably for 16 and maybe beyond, because we just couldn't foresee or picture the thought of a Republican candidate being able to challenge the Democratic establishment. And then Trump comes on and says, F it. And he just starts flipping tables upside down, just completely dismantled every Republican presidential candidate in the primaries, became the nominee, and then just ran this unprecedented campaign of chaos.
Yeah. I mean, he stomped over, what was it, Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio and those guys.
Yeah, just dismantled them. Pure destruction.
I actually have to go get my son, so...
Oh, do your thing, Brad. We're going to miss you, though.
It's all right. I think you guys got it.
Oh, we'll be all right.
All right.
Take it easy. Yeah, so he does that. And then in 2020, we have, the COVID thing. I think, but for COVID, I think he would have probably got reelected. Because by all accounts, I mean, most people were strong or confident in the economy back then. They felt that things were going well. Whatever Trump's peccadillos, just nobody cared. But then people got freaked the F out because of COVID and his mismanagement of it all, or their perceived mismanagement. And Fauci is saying things, and the Democrats are saying things. We got to trust the science. And Trump is saying, like, hell we do, and we got to keep businesses open. And the result, whatever the disagreements back then, it had the direct result, I feel like, of getting Biden elected. I'm not sure if he gets elected, but for COVID. And then, we spend 4 years shitting on this guy, Trump, stomping our feet and pounding the table that he is like this dead politician and he's going to go to jail, and basically putting him on his political cross. And somehow, because Biden doesn't want to step aside, gives the Democrats no ability to pick a worthy candidate to go up against him, or enough time for the American people to go and trust a brand new person. They just screw it. It's going to be Kamala. And he has this opportunity. Here's this opening, and now he's sitting here as the 47th president. 2 assassination attempts later, he was a convicted felon. I don't even know what's going on with his criminal sentencing. I think that they were trying to push forward with his criminal sentencing in spite of the fact that he is now the sitting president. I don't know how that works legally. But they're trying to do that. They're still trying to do that. They're going to continue to do that until I'd imagine he gets out of office.
Yeah. I mean, some of that is uncharted territory legally, right? I mean, I'm no federal law expert like some lawyer friends we know.
You cannot convict a sitting president. They have an immunity. I mean, they could commit crimes, but whether or not they are eligible to be sentenced, I got to believe that presidential immunity covers any outstanding criminal sentences that might stem from conduct before the presidency. I'd imagine. I don't know. I'd have to do the research, but at every turn, when they've tried to expedite things, when they've tried to prosecute him, when they've tried to sentence him, when they've tried to throw him in jail, their ability to do that has been nullified by him declaring executive privilege and extending things out. I will say this, that if it wasn't for him getting elected, I do believe that he would have done some jail time. Now that he's the president, it's not going to be anytime soon. And so there's that. I'll just say this, that the American people, in spite of knowing all of that, it's not like this big secret that they don't know that he's been convicted of felonies and other things. I just think that people are not trusting of the Democrats. People are not trusting of politicians in general. Donald Trump represents to them somebody that is anti-establishment, anti-politician, and he's a businessman, he's a negotiator, and he's a fighter, and he's a strong man, and he's going to go speak for the American people and put America first. That's what they think that he is. People think that he is. And for America's sake, I hope that's what he is. At best, that's what he's going to be. And at worst, he's going to be an oligarch, a dictator, somebody that tries to consolidate power far beyond this next 4-year term, not for himself, but for the Republican Party and for offshoots of the Donald Trump tree of politics, which is a weird thing to say.
I mean, to whatever level that could work. I mean, I'm not convinced
I don't know.
somebody could do that, but
I'm not
to a great
prepared.
extent.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to say that it can't happen. I mean, I didn't think he was ever going to get elected. I didn't think a lot of things. But would I put it past him to open the door for presidents to serve more than 2 terms? Nope, I would not. There's been many movements going back hundreds of years where presidents have had the juice to do something like that and just decided for one reason or another not to do that. If he gets enough support behind him, he'll have the Senate and the House and a conservative Supreme Court to start changing rules. I don't see a world where it's impossible for him to do something like that. Now, granted, I think he'd be like 85 years old if he ran in 2025 or 2028, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say this. I know I'm not happy or sad that Donald Trump is the president, but I'll tell you what I'm not. I am not scared. I'm not afraid. I don't think that the country is going to fall apart under his watch. I don't think that the sky is going to fall. I don't think that he's going to change things that have been established for hundreds of years. I don't think that he's going to be the initial salvo into the falling of the empire that is the United States of America. I think that he's going to be an interesting president. I don't know if he's going to be the smartest president, but he's certainly going to be a president that fights for his policies. And things are going to change. They've already started to change a little bit. And I'm optimistic about the next 4 years, and he has my full support. I didn't vote for him, but he's my president. What are you going to do?
Yeah. I think a lot of times people get into this mindset of something's going to be either good or bad 100%, or, something will work out or it won't work out, or something will be safe or something will be dangerous. And there's a lot of gray area, and a lot of things are really trade-offs. Like, there's no way to really do anything without a negative impact in life. Like, there's hardly anything you can do without having some sort of negative trade-off, right? And so
True.
you just have to try and do your best in decision making,
Well,
whether
think about
that's
it.
voting
Um,
at the federal, state, or local level, or participating in local politics, or whatever you're doing. You just have to take your own background and take in as much information as you can and try and make a good trade-off. And if people think about things more as trade-offs rather than right and wrong, good and evil, Harry Potter and Death Eaters, I think we'll be better
Right.
off.
I don't know about Death Eaters or Harry Potter for that regard, but
It's just a dichotomy.
think about in 2016. In 2016, he ran a campaign, one of the pillars of which was law and order. And the left-wing response to that was defund the police. And, I think the Me Too movement gained a lot of clout after Trump took office, because everybody was like, oh, he's grabbing people by the pee, and he's this and he's that and he's whatever, and he's a racist and he's these things. And it gave rise to this, what was like this burgeoning facet of democratic society, where it was like, we are the woke community and we're standing up for gender rights and LGBTQ rights and end racism and all these kinds of things. It was this movement. And then Trump comes in office and he just threw gasoline all over it, where we just started having these crazy, absurd political movements, defund the police and all of these other things. Now, he has spoken to that in this speech. This is what he said. He said, "This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of political and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandates with full back pay. I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments while on duty. That's going to end immediately. Our armed forces will be free to focus on their sole mission, defeating America's enemies." What do you think about this gender talk that he threw in? And where do you think that comes from?
Well, I mean, it's a political speech, right? So he's making a speech to his constituents. But I mean, I think factually, gender is a social construct as scientifically differentiated from biological sex attributes. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of, like, everything's an S curve. So when he's like, oh, there's only two this, I mean, yeah, maybe if you're looking at statistically significant numbers, but these things are S curves, especially when you're talking about gender. It's a social construct.
Yeah.
And I don't know what utility it has to do that. Now, if you're like, I don't know what problem he's trying to solve, I guess, but
Well, I mean, it's just this this idea that there's not two genders. There's like 24 genders. And we need to account for all of them and acknowledge all 24 of these genders' pronouns and acknowledge that they have rights and this kind of thing. We've been going back and forth, I feel like, in this country since 2016 about that specific issue.
well,
mean-
I mean, if you are sitting there with a population of human beings, what is it, 300 million people, and there will be emergent things that happen in society. And if you worry too much about top-down controlling all of that, I mean, I don't know what utility there is in that. Like, I don't know if there's 24 this or that, but like, let humans do what human beings want to do, as long as it's not illegal, right? I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's going to go on this is going
These things
to,
can be emergent, right? And you can't, if you try to control something that's emergent, you're going to have a hard time, I guess, would be my advice.
I've been reading this book on the Scopes trial from the 20s. And a lot of that book, there was this political discourse way back then about whether or not they should teach evolution in the schools. I don't know if you're familiar with the Scopes trial or not, but Clarence
Just a
Darrow,
little bit.
yeah, he goes in and he's like the greatest trial attorney that ever lived, and he was going to have this fake mock trial debate
Right.
about whether or not evolution should be taught in schools, and they were basically litigating the merits of evolution back then. And back then it was like, whether or not that was a viable subject to be taught in schools. And then we have obviously evolved like 100 years later to whatever we do today. But the sum of that discourse is taking place in 2024, 2025. Do we teach social engineering in schools? Do we teach all the different genders in school? Do we teach about trans and non-binary and these kinds of things in our schools? And if not, where do we place those outlets for people that want to learn about it? We're having those same discourses like right now.
Sure.
It's similar to that. It's just we're taking this angle to it. So it might not mean much because, yeah, scientifically, genders are what they are. There's an X or a Y chromosome, and there's like 1/10 of people that have both.
Well, you're talking about sex, not gender, I think.
You're right. I am talking about sex and gender, not gender. But the gender discussion and whether or not we should push that on our young folks in public schools has been a topic for debate. And so when he says things like that, it has ramifications for how the educational landscape is going to change when we discuss these the social engineering topics with our young folks. And so I don't know what it means, and I don't know how he's even going to do that. I just know I can see that there's going to be proposals probably to stop talking about certain things. And I know that there's certain left-wing commentators out there that are saying specifically that it is an assault on free speech, that he's even threatening to do something like that, among a lot of other things. But there's a lot of fear-mongering going off of just that particular statement that he came up with in his speech today. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I imagine if you're a qualified scientist in a very specific regime of science, listening to any politician probably like, my uncle is a doctor, and he's like, I can't watch ER on TV because it's just TV. They just make mistakes, and I just can't. My brain just rejects all the goofy mistakes they make or the simplifications on House or something like that, right?
House,
Yeah, or whatever. They can't enjoy it. And I imagine, when politicians talk, a lot of people that are experts on a particular domain probably feel the same way.
Oh,
So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. How do you take what we've learned and apply it to things you want to do, where you're saying, okay, there's local government, there's state government, there's federal government. What do we want that government to do? It's going to take in some money through taxes. It's going to spend that money. What do we want it to do? And again, I think it all comes back to trade-offs. Like, you have to make the best trade-off possible. And the question is, how do you do that? I don't know the best answer, other than I'm a science enthusiast.
that you are, sir. I got to tell you, when I got that scope, I'm going to send you the audiobook because I know that you would dig that kind of thing because you're into the Dillahunty school of debate. It was a fascinating take about the way that they were talking and thinking 100 years ago. It doesn't have much to do with today's stream, but just...
And I mean, the way technology has advanced, I mean, we went from having a very simple airplane to being on the moon in a very, very short period of time. So the amount of research we've been able to do into physics, biology, chemistry, medical sciences, and all of these things has been very amazing, actually.
You know what I'm most excited about that Trump, that I'm really hoping he does? He says that he's going to redefine what classified documents mean in America, and he's going to attempt to declassify all of these documents related to the JFK assassination, Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, all of the UFO, presumably UAPs. By the way, man, what do you think about that? Do you think that the mothership has landed in New Mexico and we are like at the precipice of an intergalactic war?
No.
Damn it, Bruce, you're no fun. What do you think? What if? Okay, I'll say this.
I think if there were aliens that had figured out how to get here, that means that they are sort of orders of magnitude.
What do you mean?
Smarter than us, and they would probably just like to us, it would sort of be like the difference between, I don't know, like a cricket and a human.
Yeah,
like
look at us.
we would be like insects or something. Like, it just wouldn't be. It wouldn't register.
I'll tell you what, I've gone down this whole rabbit hole of Stephen Greer because my wife is really into aliens, man. Stephen Greer, he has like this documentary. I forgot what it's called, but it came out recently, and he came out and he's been talking about UAPs, and he says, no, they've been around, and the government has known about them, and like there's the International Galactic Federation or something like Star Wars. There's a UFO or aliens that live underground inside of the oceans in these underground tunnels, and that the Earth is honeycombed out into these vast aliens.
The hollow Earth conspiracy theory.
Oh yeah, all of that stuff. I don't actually know if Greer's the one that said that. There's some other guy that showed up on my TikTok because I was watching Stephen Greer stuff. So
I think the hollow Earth one sometimes overlaps with the lizard people one.
Oh my God,
there's a lot of interesting conspiracy theories.
Have you ever read David Icke, that guy?
I don't know.
He was big in the 90s. It would have been right up your alley. I don't know why it would have been up your alley. Just you would have been interested in the discourse. I
Hmm.
think. Amy Bonner says that guy named Lou. I can't think. Oh, what are we talking about? Sir Winston Squeakerson says, what I would like to feel safe is to stop it with the toxic masculinity
Hmm.
and hold men like Hegseth and Trump accountable and stop the revolving door of reoffended SA criminals.
I mean,
How would you
yeah,
like to
I think
attack that
in terms
comment?
of toxic masculinity, I think education is your best bet long term strategically, right? In terms of tactics, I mean, it's hard, right? Because for SA, you have to prove it, right? And it can be very hard, even if it legitimately happens.
It's really hard for me to
It can
talk
be hard
about
to prove it, right?
well, specifically because I'm usually tasked with having to prove it or not prove it.
In a
And
divorce case or like a family law?
well, I've done it in both criminal cases and family law cases, not necessarily divorce cases, but domestic violence cases, like domestic violence by way of SA
Mhm.
was, is pretty prevalent. But the evidentiary thresholds, it's so like if you're tasked with having to represent somebody that's been accused of SA and your client is telling you up and down that, hey, I didn't do this, she was lying, but you see these pictures of bruises like on their wrist and like on their face and on their eyes and stuff. It's like, well, you did something. She's got pictures. And then your client tells you she faked them. She ran herself into the door or something. Now, obviously, you would probably look at him sideways like, okay, maybe, but on the wrist and the whole thing, and you got to kind of use your discretion to figure out whether or not they're telling the truth or not. But when some person accuses another individual of an SA,
Mhm.
and it's literally just this thing happened. I don't have any physical injuries. All I could speak to is my truth. And it happened to me. And I've been affected in like a million different ways. And then your client is saying, but it didn't happen. She's making it up. And there's no proof to say otherwise.
Yeah.
It's literally trying to present as much evidence as possible that your client is more credible than the opposing person. And if the opposing person is the victim of SA, it sucks. Because you have no idea. You have no earthly idea who's actually telling the truth.
Mhm.
You might have opinions, but
They
you're
had a
trying to.
follow-up comment here as well. I mean,
Oh,
I think they were mainly talking about proven cases.
well,
And so,
cases.
Omar, what's your difference? What's your take on the difference between like, you have hard proof or hard evidence that's very hard to refute versus a jury found someone guilty of something?
Well, what I would
Is there
consider
a
hard
difference,
evidence,
or
of
are you
course.
worried about that? Or
No, you mean with related to SA?
and well, yeah, in our court system in
Oh,
general.
just of course. Well, here's the problem. I think that there is a lot of issues with the evidence code in the ways that we allow hearsay statements to come in via some exception or whatever. And obviously, if you don't have physical, like you got the murder caught on surveillance footage. That's an
Right,
easy case,
right,
right? You got the
right.
DNA, you got the whatever. But when it's a circumstantial case and you have a jury, I gotta say the system is pretty effing good when it comes to do 12 people all think that you're guilty based on what was presented, then you're guilty. You could even disagree. There was a case that I disagreed with the conviction not that long ago, not in the Karen Reed case. It was the
Delphi
bridge
case.
guy, Delphi
Delphi.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not think that guy was guilty. I thought there was way too much reasonable doubt. I would not have felt comfortable. But I don't know what they got to hear because I got to listen to the entire trial.
Yeah, you and I were not on the jury. Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't get
Anyway.
to hear all the sidebars, all of the YouTube videos and analyzing evidence, all of the stuff that the jury don't get to hear. They just got to hear evidence. And a lot of my analysis of that trial was based on my anger about certain details being left out for the jury.
Mhm.
I think that if you're going to have a circumstantial case and then you block the jury from seeing certain things because you've determined that it's not relevant, that's a lot of power for a judge to have. Because there was a lot of things that I thought were relevant in that case that didn't get in that I thought might have changed the minds of a juror or two, but for the judge didn't let it in. And so the one problem that I would have with our criminal system is specifically that, dealing with these circumstantial cases. If there's not physical, concrete evidence, then what is admissible?
Or the Denny rule in the Hellbach Avery case, right?
Yeah, I have a problem, because you could say, oh, you got to have some concrete tie into the main killer. You got to prove motive. You got to prove this or that, or some piece of evidence. You're not going to have that in every single case. But what you might have is circumstantially a tie into a motive that doesn't directly link anything in terms of physical evidence. And oftentimes, because of that case specifically and other similar case law, they disallow third-party culpability evidence because, but you need a physical direct tie-in. It's like, okay, well, I guess we're not going to talk about any other possible solutions when my job is to create reasonable doubt. And I have this circumstantially, they might have found violent pornography images akin to perhaps the mode of murder in this case. And they don't get to hear any of that because I'm going way off.
I feel like I've derailed us from the topic of the executive branch.
Thanks, Bruce.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but these are all sort of interesting things. And I mean, the executive branch, it does have a lot of power in terms of appointing to the Supreme Court, assigning judges that are going to be hearing these type of cases or making these type of rulings.
Yeah.
So it's tangentially related, but I'm
not sure.
Squeakerson Cat was making me think of different things there.
Squeakerson Cat, who in the hell? I think nice she's up there, isn't she? Sir Winston Squeakerson.
Yeah.
There's not a cat in her name. There's a cat in her picture. The judge angers me. She is supposed to curb an overzealous prosecution. I don't blame the jurors too much. There was so much they didn't hear. Is she talking about the bridge guy case?
Possibly.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Amy Bonner says, I didn't either. A juror has done an interview. The defense diary is going live about it tonight. Oh, that case is frustrating. But yeah. If you were asking me that question with respect to what's Trump going to do with it about it, I don't know, man. What is he really? I don't think that's really top of his agenda to change the evidentiary rules about what gets allowed in circumstantial cases. We got here because we were talking about sexual assault cases.
Do you think he would assign more Supreme Court justices? What do they call it? Packing the court?
Yeah, I think that was more a Democrat thing because it's like 6-3 right now or something like that.
So he has no reason to do that.
Yeah, why would he do that?
Yeah.
We already got a conservative court. What do I need to pack more? And guess what? I think that the remaining liberal justices are about at the end of their tether. How much longer does Sotomayor have?
So he may have some appointment opportunities in the next 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scenario where it might just be a 9-0 conservative court if Republicans win again in 2028. Is that good or bad? I don't know. I don't know. I don't get so caught up in that thing. I really think that the Supreme Court justices, we label them conservative or liberal, but really what it is their interpretation of law. That's all it is. And yeah, it's easy to say, well, because liberal judges, more often than not vote against conservative judges, and there's usually a pretty even divide. But I mean, I don't know, man. There's not a whole lot that can be done about it unless you're going to increase the number of Supreme Court justices to like 21 or something, which would be exhausting. I think it's good that it's 9. I think 9 is a good hearty number. I think 3 is too few.
What do you think about term limits? Do you think the Supreme Court should have mandatory term limits or age limits?
I don't think that somebody north of 85 has any business sitting on the Supreme Court. Just don't. Maybe there's some exceptions to that, but most 85-year-olds should not be engaged in that level of complicated, litigious discourse.
Yeah, they should probably be enjoying a well-earned golf game or something.
Or just like going to the beach or just not doing that.
Yeah.
Why would you want to read a bunch of Supreme Court briefs? It's just, and writing, I mean, they don't write their opinions. They have their clerks write them, but still.
On the other hand, I never understood anybody that wanted to be the CEO of a corporation. And then I learned that, there's this less than 10% of people that have this extreme type A and they want to be the CEO and they want to be the CEO
Oh yeah.
forever. I'm like, I just can't wrap my brain around it, but there are these people that are like that.
You know, that's Donald Trump. They like
Yeah,
that.
right.
They have the position of power. They don't want, it's not enough for them to be a billionaire. They want to be the president of the United States. I can't think of a less desirable job to have, honestly. Like just people coming after you all the time. 4 years of people constantly criticizing your opinions, your actions, everything about you, your speech, your family.
Yeah.
Nothing was off limits. That sucks, man.
Yeah, because he's wealthy and famous. And I was telling my gaming friends the other day, like, you either want to be very wealthy and no one knows who you are, or you want to be sort of famous, but not like super wealthy, right? You just want to be able to go buy a house in Montana or something and retire once
Yeah.
you're done being famous movie star or something. You don't want both, because both is when people start shooting at you. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
I would have thought that who needs that, man? At Trump's age, like he's
Yeah.
like what, 80 years old. Dude, go to Mar-a-Lago or whatever. Go play golf. Like
Yeah.
enjoy life. You only got realistically like maybe a good 10, 12 years left if you're lucky.
But I don't know. Where I worked, we had these training classes where you could take this sort of test and figure out if you were one of these people or if your desires were more about. We had people who wanted to solve problems, people who wanted to build things, people who wanted to work with other people and talk and communicate. And then there's like this 1% or whatever it is that wants to be the CEO.
Yeah.
And it's like out of a big room of people taking the training, there's only going to be like one of those people in there.
Oh, what are the ages of the Supreme Court justices right now? Let me look that up real quick. Right now, John Roberts is getting up there. He's like 69. Clarence Thomas, I feel like he's been 76 for 20 years. I feel like he's been old forever. Alito's in there. He's 74. He's getting up. I mean, 74 to me is not old. I think you could do that in 25. I mean, we know a lot more about nutrition, brain supplements or whatnot. It's easier to stay effective. Sotomayor she just turned 70.
Maybe.
Gosh, Kagan she's only 64. Gorsuch is the new kid on the block. He's 57. Kavanaugh's 59. Amy Coney Barrett. By the way, what do you think about her?
I don't know. I mean, I think I was listening to some of their comments on the TikTok hearing.
Yeah.
I think Emily Baker covered the last the emergency TikTok hearing where they were like,
yeah,
they weren't supposed to be there that day, but they're like, well, we're gonna shut this thing down if we don't talk about it first, right? Or all that, or we're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah.
So they met when they didn't need to meet. And I thought it was interesting because it was nice that the justices in general were, when the petitioner was up there, they were very hard on the petitioner. And when the respondent was up there, they were very hard on the respondent. And they're going to write rulings that are one side or the other, but they at least did a good job of sort of being hard on asking questions, which I think is what appellate judges have to do, right?
Yeah, they ask
both
questions. They try to attack and tear apart your arguments, and then they write their opinions at the conclusion of oral arguments about whether or not something is going to change or not.
So I think she asked some good questions, but
I'll tell you what, Amy Coney Barrett is, by my measure, genius level smart. She's probably, I'll tell you what, in terms of
she
her,
asked a few good questions. She's a genius.
Well, not because of her questions. I'm just saying, like in terms of her ability to speak, her writing ability, and just her mental acuity. She's a scary lady, man. She is I'm not impressed by Gorsuch. I'm not impressed by Kavanaugh.
Every once in a while, you meet some people. Like when I first changed jobs where I worked, and I used to work in what we called post-silicon, where you work with the real products. And then I worked in pre-silicon, where you're designing the products. And one of the first guys running the project on when I went to pre-silicon, like this guy, his mind was like a steel trap. Like it was sharp. Like you have a question and he knows, if he doesn't know the answer, he knows how to get the answer. If he can make a funny quip about anything, and you meet some of these people where their mind is just like a fine-tuned machine.
And it's intimidating.
Yeah.
Right. I get that impression of ACB. I don't get that. I mean, I think John Roberts is an intimidating kind of guy.
Hmm.
I think he's always been really sharp like that, really sharp. Clarence Thomas, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say about him. My introduction to Clarence Thomas was when I was a boy, like in '93,
Yeah.
when he
Yeah.
got the whole pubic
He's
hair
very
on the
strange because he does not speak a lot, right? Like he doesn't talk
no,
a lot, so it's
he just
hard to
sits
get a
there
reading on him.
like the
But
grumpy old man, just sits there and mad dogs everybody. And every now and then he'll ask a question. He has scathing opinions. I'll say that.
sure.
Alito is very much the everyman. Gets along with everybody. Can't really make heads or tails of him. He's fine. He's been there since when? I don't even know. He was a Bush appointee. Sotomayor, she's earned my respect over the years. I read her book way back, like in 2004. She came out with an autobiography. She is very much of the elevated social discourse. She really holds her minority status on a pedestal, at least when she was appointed. She's continued to do that, and all of her opinions have reflected what some would label left-wing, liberal, woke ideologies. She's very conscientious about race and gender. I think of all of the left-wing justices, and there's like only 3 of them, I think she's like the leader of the pack.
Mm. She also had good questions, in my opinion, on this TikTok hearing the other day.
Oh, she's a sharp lady for
Yeah.
sure. But she's been reliably left since she was appointed. Gosh, I can't believe she's 70. Ketanji Brown, I don't know enough about her to make heads or tails of her. She is the most recent appointee. She's only 54. She's going to be there for a while. If I was to conjure up an arbitrary number for an age limit for a Supreme Court justice, I don't know. How about 75? How about at 75? We're not saying that you are diminished to where you can't do the job. It's just maybe you shouldn't do the job anymore.
Well, let me put it this way. Most corporations, I don't think there's some rule, but most of them have this 65 is the upper limit for a CEO. And then you also have to be able to pass a particular type of physical, like a medical physical exam.
Yeah, I don't.
Because the board of directors does not want the liability of having someone in the CEO position who could just sort of drop dead the next day, right? So when you're in these powerful positions, I think there is a bit of this, you want to protect yourself a little bit against this liability. So there are rules. Like I never understood why the federal government, everybody was always like, well, the emails are here and the documents are here and blah, blah, blah. And people are using personal phones. I'm like, if anybody did this stuff they do in the government, where I worked in the private sector, you would be fired. We have very specific security policies, privacy policies, CEO policies that I think the government could learn a lot from.
I'll tell you what, though, if you were to run medical evals of, let's just say, the entire Senate or the House of Representatives.
Okay.
I just found out like a couple weeks ago, there's literally somebody serving on the House that is currently in a convalescent home.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like no for-profit corporation would ever do that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. There's things, these different domains like government and capitalist corporations and other forms of government and socialism, like they have their pros and cons and they have places where they can do good work, right? Like individuals can't go build, an interstate highway, but maybe the government can. The government can't, do research on cutting edge drugs, but maybe corporations can. Like you have to figure out where different structures are effective and let them work in their charter domain.
Well, I'll tell you what, even if you were to implement an age limit on Supreme Court justices, we have a relatively young court. Mm-hmm. The only people over 70 is Clarence Thomas and Alito. Sotomayor just turned 70. Everybody else is sub 70, and there's 3 justices in their 50s. 4 women in their 50s.
Yeah.
John Roberts, he looks like such a young guy. I'm shocked that he's like 69. He's about to hit his 70s. We're going to have 4 justices when Roberts on the 20. Oh, he just turned 69. So next year he'll be 70. We will have 4 justices that are 70 and above. And we'll have 4 others that are in their 50s and one that's like in between, Kagan. And so whoever these Supreme Court justices, I don't think that they're going anywhere anytime soon. Clarence Thomas is probably the next up.
You would need age limits and term limits in conjunction.
Yeah. Would you, I don't know, what would you say? What would be better, a term limit or an age limit for a Supreme Court justice?
Well, I would like both.
What would be the term limit, would you say? 4 terms?
I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like if you try to make it term limits, you can overly politicize Supreme Court justices in a way that the founding fathers didn't intend. I'm pretty sure I had a conversation.
Really?
Well, because then it's like, along with, I mean, it's not like they don't do it now, but it's like every president coming in would have the ability to nominate their own justices. And so attached to the presidential election would be this idea that you're voting for not just the president, but you're also voting for the next 2 or 3 Supreme Court justices, which I'm not saying hasn't been the case for like hundreds of years, but it would just like put a magnifying glass in that aspect of it.
Oh, I'm not saying they have to be 4-year terms.
Oh, like 2.
It could be 20 years. I'm just saying something that is not infinite. Less than infinite.
Less than if it can't be like you're 88 years old and living in a convalescent home is what we're saying. All right. So Donald Trump is the president and he's going to be for the next 4 years. What are the odds? What's the over under? What odds would you give it that he's going to try to stay in power after 2028?
Very low.
I don't know, man. Okay, let's just say that, okay, we all think that he's going to decline in health, and maybe he is. But does he know that he's declining in health? Because I feel like he's already kind of declined from 16 to...
let's and I don't know, I'm getting a little echo. I don't know why, but let's assume he was 55 or something. Like, I still think it's low.
Okay.
I don't know. I just don't see that. Like, he talks a big game, but I don't see.
Well, he talks a big game, and then sometimes he backs it up, like the January 6th thing. I know that's a controversial statement. I know that.
Well, I mean, he wasn't sitting there saying like, "Yeah, I'm doing a coup. Let's go do it."
But he did. He was on the phone with the governor of Georgia trying to like find 12,000 votes or whatever it was. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the art of the deal. I don't
Amy Bonner says, I think he'll be I feel like I would be tired, man. It's like, if I'm 85 years old, I don't want to be president. I'm done. You know, hand it over to his kids or whatever. He's going to try to get
type A people, though, dude. They're not like you and me. They're not like us.
Yeah. I heard that his youngest son, Barron, wants a bigger political position in this next coming term. The young one,
is he?
He's like 20 or something like that. He wants a political.
I remember him being in like school or something, but that was.
Yeah, I remember him like he's all baby faced and stuff. All
ago or whatever. Yeah.
He's like 6'8" now.
Yeah, that was like 10
He's still got a baby face, but he looks just like his dad, and he's like 6'8" or 6'9" or something.
He's 6'8".
He's dude. I'm not even bullshitting. He's literally probably like 6'9". He could be power forward for the Clippers.
6'9"?
Yeah.
And he's not playing ball? What the heck? He should be a safety in the NFL.
I think his athletic skills are questionable.
Oh, well.
He looks like a tall drink of water, like you just tip him over. I'm not sure he does squats.
Get him into the gym, coach. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure of his speed. Amy Bonner says his younger son that towers over him. He's taller than everybody.
He says 6'9".
Yeah, 6'8" or 6'9" is something like that. And then you saw him today at the inauguration. It checks out.
Wow. Is he big? Is he a big guy? He could be a linebacker.
No, he's like a skinny guy.
Oh.
He doesn't.
Yeah, then he should be a safety or play basketball.
Definitely not a safety. I don't think that he's the type to. Like what? Like Steve Atwater? He's going to lay the wood over there? He's going to go head up with a Christian Okoye? I don't know, man.
He can cover Tyreek Hill. He can do a good job. I don't know.
Oh, Wing says, never mind. Google says that he's 20. He's 18. The news said he's 21. Yeah, one of those is wrong. I don't know. I feel like he was 12 in 2016, so I was just adding 8 years.
Yeah, dude. I think this two-party system and this whole like families and relatives becoming the next I think that's kind of busted. I don't like it.
I mean, it's busted, but it's been busted forever. I mean, what are we going to do about it, man?
I'm just saying
Um,
it's no good.
Yeah, it's bizarre that it's still a thing. It's bizarre that anybody that is an up and coming politician that has differing views has to cater to the left or the right, and no fun playing in between because then you're just an independent and no one's going to vote for you.
Yeah.
And so we've created a system of pandering and catering, and Trump does it better than anybody. He's a freaking genius at it. I can't get over this whole TikTok thing. It was like a month ago. He was talking about, I'm going to shut down TikTok. The whole thing's going to be banned. I'm going to make China pay tariffs, the Communist Party, and this and that. And they're having Senate meetings about it, and they're going after the TikTok CEO.
Yeah.
And then Sunday evening, thanks to the efforts of President Trump, TikTok is back on. It's like, come on, man. He's like,
Well, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, like I saw Dave played a clip on his podcast about, people were like, oh, well, ByteDance is owned by the Chinese government. And then the other guy's like, well, they're not actually owned by the Chinese government. It's like two Chinese software engineers that are citizens.
yeah.
And I mean, as you can have a stance, you can have a position and say like, oh, we need to look into this TikTok thing. It seems sketch for security reasons. And then you might learn some things and change your position. So I'm all willing for people to learn things and change their position as long as they're transparent about it. Now, if there's some sketchy, conspiracy theory here to make money, that's a whole other thing. But in general, I'm fine with people having hearings and learning things and then changing their position.
Did you oh shit. Did you get a chance to catch some of the Senate meetings with the TikTok CEO and how they were just kind of going in on him? It made me so
I don't know if I saw those. I saw the Supreme Court meeting.
I didn't watch that, but there was I'm not going to try to look for the clips, but it was just an embarrassment of the way that the guy was being questioned by like these idiotic comments. They're trying to tie him into like the Communist Party and China's this and that. And isn't it true that young people have been on your platform and ended their lives because of they were searching for positive affirmations, and then they were getting all of this videos about the opposite of positive affirmation. It was like this bizarre. X is like, what are we doing with this? And he's trying to defend himself, and they weren't having an intellectual discourse on like whether or not TikTok could be considered a national security threat. They just turned it into this like different thing.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of talking about earlier, where if you have somebody who's an expert, maybe on technology or medicine or whatever the domain of science is, you hear some of these politicians, you probably just get frustrated, like you're a doctor watching House or something. It's probably tough.
By the way, that guy is no longer listed as the CEO of TikTok on their website anymore. What do you think that's all about?
Mysterious. I don't know.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. I don't have TikTok on my phone, so the only TikTok I watch is when my gaming friends find gaming reels that I need to watch.
What games do you play, Bruce?
Oh, we play all sorts of different things. Like right now, there's a multiplayer game called Marvel Rivals. We're into. Two of my friends are trying to finish Baldur's Gate 3. I'm trying to finish the latest Dragon Age game. I don't know. We'll play golf with friends. Just
is that like a
goof off and chat in Discord?
Fantasy style dragon game?
One?
I don't know. You said something with dragons?
Yeah. Those are a lot of like high fantasy. The Marvel Rivals is more the comic book stuff.
Amy Bonner says I get too sucked in, so I try to stay off it, but then I'll find something on YouTube and I want to go watch it in completion. It's TikTok is a black hole of nothingness and rot. I would recommend it. All right. So we're an hour 45 minutes in. Donald Trump is our 47th president. I know that half of you are really happy. I talked to Megan Fox earlier this morning. This is what she said to me. She said, Donald Trump is our greatest president or something like that. This is what she said. Trump is the best president we've ever had. The economy was roaring. There was peace on earth. We had oil independence and everyone wanted to be friends with us. That's what we will get back. I just wish we could give this man 2 more terms. It's like, well, Megan, I didn't know about any of that, but he's certainly one of the toughest presidents that we've had. I'll give him that. And for all of his, all of the optimism on the left and all of his supporters, everything that they're saying, I just really hope it works out, man. Godspeed to him. He's got my full support. For those that didn't vote for him, I feel like, here's what I feel. I feel like the people just anyone that didn't vote for him, I think that we're all just so exasperated by it. I was like, what could you even do? The guy's a president. Like, I feel like there's been like a loss of energy, like a loss of willpower almost. Like, nobody's willing to be just all up in arms. Like, it is what it is. The guy's a president for 4 years. Like, when he was voted in 2016, there was all of this backlash and there was all of this, extremist protesting and the sky is falling and all these things. In 24, I don't feel that at all. I feel like people are like, nah, what are you going to do? I think part of that is the result of we're not going from Barack Obama to Donald Trump. So we don't have that extreme juxtaposition. We're literally going from Joe Biden to Donald Trump. And a lot of people prefer Trump to Biden. They just do. He appears to be more alive, more mental acuitous, if that's a word. And he's got ideas and he's going to put them in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different time. The context is different. We've lived through different things.
Yeah.
All we can do is get up in the morning and prioritize and try to do things that we can affect to make our well-being better, to make the well-being of our friends and family better. And that's all we can do.
What would be your message for anybody that's disappointed that Trump is the president?
I mean, that was it. You can wake up in the morning and prioritize how you spend your time, where you direct your energy, and try to improve well-being for yourself and your friends and family. I mean, I can go into a comments section on the internet and say, oh, here's a bad thing Trump did, or here's a bad thing Biden did. But what is that accomplishing? It's not accomplishing anything. So I try to spend my energy on things I can affect that will improve my own well-being, improve the well-being of others. And that's all we can do.
Yes, sir. Couldn't have said it better. And that's it, man. You got 4 years. Put your support behind Donald Trump. It's not a debate anymore. The guy's your president. And so he is our president. And we have to trust that he's got our best interest at heart. Let's try not to impeach him every time he doesn't look both ways across the road. Let's try not to attack every single policy that he implements without any kind of educational authority. Just give him a chance. What are you going to do?
Hopefully the Secret Service will clean up their act and look both ways before he crosses the street. I don't know.
Hopefully no DEI hires for the Secret Service. I don't know, man. I don't even want to get back into that stuff. But yeah, hopefully they clean up their act. Hopefully they learn to scope out the rooftops. Hopefully they don't let him give speeches in the open air in public anymore. I don't think they're going to do. They got to. They'll fix that. I'm sure. We'll see. All right, folks.
Very good.
That's all I got to say about Trump, and we will see you guys next time. Love you all. Bye-bye.